My name's Amanda Jane Edwards. I'm 52 years old and I'm currently living in Kirkby Green, a little village in Lincolnshire. I'm a twin and I've got another elder sibling who turned 60 this year. I'm married to a serving soldier. We've been married 23 years, but I've known Philip since I was 10. And we are hopefully getting posted to Cyprus in June this year, so that's going to be an adventure for us. I grew up in the Vale of Belvoir, which is in Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire. My dad was a builder and my mum looked after us when we were growing up through school, and then she went to work in Woolworths. Had a really good upbringing. We were very sporty and we were fortunate enough to have ponies, and mum and dad took us every weekend. We were at a gymkhana or a horse event, which I very much appreciate because I know it's very costly, but we absolutely loved it. We were very sporty. Myself and my twin sister competed a lot, and we used to do tetrathlons and triathlons, which is running over a cross-country course, actually riding a horse over a cross-country course, shooting a pistol and a moving target, and then swimming. But we played badminton for the county. We did a lot of running, always involved in athletics clubs. So really sporty family. I worked for the army when I left school at 16. I then went travelling. I got a round the world ticket at 20 for a year. I worked in Australia, New Zealand, came back. I then went back to work at the Defence Animal Centre in Melton. And then I met, Philip. He came back, he was actually posted out in Cyprus, but came back on compassionate leave. And he asked me if I'd like to go out to Cyprus. So I said, I've never been to Cyprus. So I went for 3 months just to see if I liked it. And then we ended up getting married. Yeah, always liked adventure. We haven't got any children. Just one of those things. So neither have any of my sisters. What are the chances of that? So, parents having 3 daughters and none of them having any children. But we're just doing a little bit of a recycling, I suppose. But yeah, so we get on very well with both my sisters and their partners, which is nice. So yes, had a very good, happy childhood, and feel I've been very, very lucky and fortunate. I'm currently working as a civil servant at RAF Digby as a travel coordinator. So I book overseas and UK travel for military and civvy people, whether they need a train ticket, accommodation in a hotel abroad or in England, or rail. But dealing with overseas, they have to put a business case because it all comes down to cost. So we have to put together prices of the trips, and if it gets authorised, we then have to book it. Sounds pretty boring. I can assure you every day is different, and it is quite challenging, and that I do enjoy that, and it keeps my brain occupied. So just working for the forces, and then obviously Philip being a serving soldier, from the age of, we got married at 28, and then our first posting was Cyprus. We then got posted back to Norfolk, Swanton Morley, where I went for a job in an animal sanctuary on one side of the road in Norfolk. Went for where I thought I was going to go for a job interview, found out I'd got the wrong sanctuary, got the job in that one, and thinking, hold on a minute, thank you very much, that's very kind of you. This was Red Wings Horse Sanctuary, but the place where I should have been gone for the interview was called Hillside. So I did finally go for my interview, and I took the job at Hillside, which was as an animal sanctuary, which was great. I was there we were only in Norfolk for I think 18 months, and then Philip's regiment got posted to Germany. So we went out to Germany, a place called Hona, where I worked within an education centre as a reception clerk, and then I was not a librarian, but I worked in the library within the education centre. We then got posted back to Luton, Bedfordshire, and I decided I wanted to use my brain, so I went to college to study and do an executive executive secretarial diploma. Well, that only lasted a few months because Philip got posted again. We then got posted to Catterick, and I ran a charity shop, Bernardo's. So ran a charity shop there in North Allerton and Darlington, which I really enjoyed, and I loved that job. It was great because every day you just don't know what was going to come through the door, and I'm for a bargain. So I loved that. We then got posted to Surrey, and I loved that job as well. I worked as a key worker in a charity organised, it was like basically it was a centre run for people with disabilities, mobility disabilities, people who had a stroke, were in a wheelchair. It was lovely. It was so humbling. I was there for about 3 years and loved every minute. I used to have to run programmes for the people. So I used to ask them what they want to get out of coming to Disability Initiative. We then moved to here, I think it was Lincolnshire, and I started working at Digby as a civil servant in the catering section in the junior ranks mess, basically being a pot washer. Then I got promoted into the sergeant's mess, officer's mess, as a steward, so basically taking the food out. I do like catering. And then I applied for a job as a registry clerk, got that, didn't like it, and then I applied for the job as the travel coordinator, and I've been there ever since. But that is just a few of the jobs I've had.
What invention in your lifetime are you most amazed by?
My dad was diagnosed with motor neurones disease 5 years ago, and you just don't think anything like that's ever going to happen to you. It's awful, horrible disease. So I just think anything to do with medical, I mean, what they can't do now with, with your scans, your MRIs, injection. Look at COVID, look at the injection, the boosters and all that. I mean, I just think it's amazing. Anything medical, I think, that can improve people's life to a good standard. Do you know what I mean? I loved, obviously growing up in the 80s, the music. And I do feel for the youngsters of today, especially you guys who had that experience, but your age, we were out clubbing and nightclubbing, and I do feel because, I mean, I don't know how much you have been out. If you something like blooming Boris Johnson having parties when you shouldn't be having parties, and I'm sure things have slipped through the net, and you think, do you know what we were doing at your age? I do feel for the students and that. I mean, not that I ever went to university, but for the age group. I don't know, looking back when you watch the 80s videos, the music is just amazing, and they don't write songs, I don't think, like they used to. I love writing, I love receiving letters, and I think it's nice, it's lovely to receive a letter too. So just having more time to spend with people who you want to spend it with. And I always think, I do buy people things for the birthday and Christmas, but family, I always think, I don't want anything, just come and spend time, come and spend an afternoon with me, let's go for a walk or let's go for a coffee, because time is so important, I think. You can't buy time, can you?
What are the most important lessons that you've learned in your life?
To appreciate things, to never judge people's choices and opinions because you don't know what choices or options they've had. Do you know what I mean? And you never know what chapter of life you're walking into somebody's. Never judge a book by its cover. When spoken to, no matter how boring it is, just try and listen. And if I always find it now, if you ask somebody a question, listen to their answer. And I always ask people twice how they are, because on the second time, if they're not right, for whatever mental health issue or anything, they will probably tell you on the second time you've asked them. I don't know, I think the older you get, I don't know, know whether you just get more sentimental or what, I don't know. I mean, I probably have got too much time on my hands, I don't know. But I do always feel how and care about how people are. And I just think I'm so lucky to have my sisters and my friends. Not everybody's that lucky. And, you know, for people that are at home who haven't had a conversation with anybody, no matter what it's about, even just picking up the phone and saying, what have you had for your tea tonight? Do you know what I mean? It's so important. And the little things can be really important, can't they? I suppose everybody's got their own values and standards and what's important to them and what's not important to other people. So yeah, value everybody, because everybody's different and everybody's got their own standards, I suppose, haven't they? In a roundabout way. Yeah.
Who would you say has influenced you most in your life?
My daddy. Don't you get me crying. Yeah, because I just feel for him now, because he can't do anything. Sorry.
Okay, do you want some water? Do you want a tissue?
No, I'm alright, thank you. He always used to encourage us so much and tell us not to worry about anything. And now but before he got diagnosed, he'd be cycling 100 miles a week. He was so active. And it can just get you like that. Oh, and it's awful. You wouldn't wish anybody, any disease is awful, but you wouldn't wish that on your worst enemy, I tell you. So yeah, my dad, he is, anytime I'm down or I'm low, I always think, right, what would my dad do? How would my dad answer that back? How would he deal with that situation? And I mean, I go running and I do a lot of sport. And while I've been for a run, when I came back from work today, and when I'm running, every step I think of my dad, because he's just in a bed, he can't do anything. So yeah, and I think never take anything for granted. So yeah, me dad.
What are you most proud of?
Proud, I suppose. Well, to own our own house, to live here. Every time I step through that door, I feel how very lucky we are. And I am proud that, I suppose, is that it, to own your own house? Yeah. So just, I suppose, owning our own property and getting through every day, I suppose, is a bonus. Yeah. And having lots of friends, it's nice to think, to just have made somebody's day by phoning them or leaving a letter on their doormat or just sending them a text, just to don't have to say anything, just to say, do you know what, I'm thinking about you and I love you. I always tell people I love them, and I mean it. I wouldn't just say it if I didn't, do you know what I mean? Yeah. I do mean it, and I do say it, and I tell them, because that can be important too. So yes, having a lovely circle of friends. Do stuff that you enjoy. Don't do anything that you don't like, it's just waste. So do stuff that you really do enjoy, because you only get one shot at it. Yeah. I suppose I don't know whether it'd be a regret, is probably of us not having children. I do think, oh my God, how would our lives have been if we had children? They definitely wouldn't be like what they are now. But I think, and I think the older I've got without having children, without being awful, I think we've got more selfish. I think that's the right word. And you don't realise you're getting selfish, because like I'll come home from work and I just do what I want to do, within reason, obviously. I mean, if I want to go out for a run, I'll go for a run. If I want to go shopping, I'll go shopping. I've not got to think about picking the children up from school. And I can't imagine me doing it. So I suppose I have got, not selfish, it's just that's my way of life, and that's how I deal with it. If I want to go for a kip, I'll go for a kip. But then I was only speaking to my elder sister last night. I wonder if we go on holidays together, and we've only just come back in January. Actually, we went on a golfing holiday. It was my elder sister's 60th, on a golfing holiday, which was great because we're all golfers and it was all competitive and playing for a cup and everything, playing for the house, no, not house. And I said to Bev, do you think we'd still go on holidays together if one of us had got children? And she says, we probably would, but just not as many. So yeah, I suppose just having children, but is it a regret, or was it a path that my life took because we couldn't have them? I don't know. I suppose if we have talked about adoption and fostering and that, but I don't know. I just sometimes I think, would we have been in a place long enough? Because I do feel for the children that are at school, they just get settled and then the parents are on the move again. I mean, it's bad enough for their adults. And I know children do adapt easier sometimes than adults because they just get on with it. They don't know any different, do they? I don't know. Maybe that might have been a regret that we didn't, well, I suppose there's still time, that we didn't foster, because we've got so much love that we could have given a child or children. I know there's a lot of people that don't like change and don't like things, and I do feel for my mum and I suppose my mum's generation, who they're in their 80s, and it must be so frustrating for them when everything's all online, banking, and that must be hard for them, because it's hard for me sometimes. And I do feel that we've just come back of holiday, and with the COVID restrictions, if we hadn't got a mobile phone, it would have been near on impossible. So you have to keep up with technology, and sometimes I don't think it's the best. It has its advantages, but it also has its disadvantages. I can remember when we first got our first colour television, my granddad was like, oh, when he watching the pool, is it pool when they have coloured balls? He was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that the balls are actually different colours. They just look the same. So I suppose I do feel for them, because I don't think many people do like change. And like you say, oh, if you haven't got that app or that phone or that type of phone, then, just it's banking. Some people like to go physically into a bank, one, to talk to somebody, two, to make sure they've actually got it right, and to see their money exchange. They look at that. I mean, a lot of people don't even have money now, do they? It's all card. From April, when the energy bills go up, the cost of living is just going up. Then I've heard on the news and that now locally, there's a lot more burglaries because people just can't afford it. And when we was growing up, we'd never heard of food banks. It's like, what's a food bank? And it's the norm now, isn't it? And it's awful. How sad is that we can't afford to feed our children or ourselves? There's so many different things happening in different countries. We don't know how it's going to affect us. Look at out in Ukraine, Russia. You just don't know, do you? I don't know. It is scary, and we all go around in our little bubbles, don't we? Living in our little worlds, not having to think about what's going on in another country. Oh, well, I do feel for the younger generation, especially with like the climate change and stuff like that. But then you see all these flipping movies, don't you? All these sci-fi movies, and how things have progressed. I was going to say 30 years ago, but you can even say 20 years ago. I suppose, I don't know, you've just got to think that everything's moving forward for the best, and it is going to be better for you guys. You've just got to hope, haven't you? How would I like to be remembered? I'd like to think that I always had time for people, and that they'd remember that, oh, AJ, yeah, she used to write me a letter, or because my nickname's AJ, or oh yeah, she'd pop and see me on her way back from work. I suppose, yeah, just for being hopefully a kind person. Really, nothing, not having anything or anything, but yeah, just being a kind person. But I'd always have time for people, I suppose, yeah.